Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. This week, Claude officially overtook OpenAI as the most used AI model, so we'll take a closer look at what the data says and why this isn't necessarily good news for Anthropic. Plus, Notion announces an impressive set of new agentic features at its annual developer conference. Google Gemini gets new abilities to handle multi-step processes, and are we headed for an AI backlash? We'll explore why some companies are cutting back on the rollout of their new AI features. So stay tuned for all of that and more, and as always, if you enjoy the briefing, hit the like and the subscribe button. So let's start this week with the major news that Anthropic's Claude has officially overtaken OpenAI for the first time in RAMP's Economic Index report. So this report tracks actual business spend across more than 50,000 American companies. So this isn't survey data where they just say what they use. This is companies who are actually paying for these models. And the numbers are pretty positive for Anthropic. Anthropic's adoption rose to 34.4% of businesses in April, while OpenAI fell to 32.3%. And over the past year, Anthropic has quadrupled its business adoption rate, while OpenAI has grown by just 0.3%. So on first glance, this looks like great news for Anthropic, and to some extent, it is. But the overall picture isn't all rosy, and there are some significant challenges that the company is currently grappling with. The first is cost. So Anthropic makes more money when businesses use more tokens, which means its incentives push users towards more expensive models, even when cheaper ones would do the job. RAMP is already seeing some of the fastest growing vendors this month being AI inference platforms. This is companies who give businesses access to cheaper open source models. And as we mentioned in a previous video, Uber's CTO has reportedly said that the company has already burned through its entire 2026 AI budget. If these cost pressures drive businesses to cheaper alternatives, then Anthropic's lead could be short-lived. The second is reliability. So in recent weeks, users have experienced outages, rate limits, and growing dissatisfaction with some of its results. Anthropic reset usage limits across the board in April and has signed a new compute deal with SpaceX to address this capacity, but this is a potential yellow flag. And third is the recent changes to how its pricing structure works, which have pretty much infuriated the developer community. So earlier this week, Anthropic announced that it is splitting its usage quotas into two separate pools for its paid plans. In one pool, you have interactive usage, that's things like Claude Chat and native Claude Code sessions. And in the other is programmatic or agentic usage. This is where you use the Claude SDK or Claude Code through GitHub Actions and other third-party tools. And it's that last pool that is changing. So this will now draw from a dedicated monthly credit pool that is billed at standard API rates once that credit is exhausted. This decouples the chat and coding side of things from automation and agents, which previously shared the same quota, and results in a significant reduction, with some developers saying that this reduces their capacity by 10 to 40x. Needless to say that developers aren't particularly happy, and when developers aren't happy, as you probably know, bad things tend to happen to the vendor responsible. As you probably know, if engineers have any say in which model to use at their company, then they may start to encourage the adoption of other models, which will inevitably have a knock-on effect on these numbers. So for now, Anthropic is sitting pretty on top of this dataset in adoption, but it'll be interesting to see what impact, if any, this current uproar has on next month's data. Elsewhere this week, and continuing the theme of developer relations, Notion has held its annual developer conference with some powerful new features for the people who build products, including a new feature that it says was its #1 most requested. So they're calling this whole bunch of announcements the Notion developer platform, and the core concept at the heart of this is something that they call workers. So these are small programs that Notion hosts and run in its own environment, with the pitch that developers and coding agents can write the logic and Notion can take care of everything else. So workers can connect to any external system through the API and pull live data into Notion through a shared canvas. So this demo shows a Stripe synchronization in minutes. So here they initialize a worker locally, point a coding agent at it, and with a prompt describing what they'd like to sync, this lets the agent build and test the logic and then deploy it with a single CLI command. The result for this was a live Notion database with Stripe customers, subscriptions, and invoices all syncing in real time, which a personal agent then turned into a team dashboard. So for product managers and designers and other non-engineers, you can imagine how this could be really powerful. They also showed something called Renewal Ronnie, which is an agent built on top of that syncs data throughout the day and runs nightly, checks every customer renewal, and prompts the accounts team to reach out proactively. As well as workers, Notion also announced a new API that it says is its #1 most requested feature, and this is the Markdown API. So I'll pop the link to both the full talk and the developer website for you to have a read in full in the description. Notion joins the growing list of companies who are packaging their products into command line interfaces. And if you want to learn more about CLIs from a non-engineering perspective, then check out the latest knowledge series over on Substack, where I explore what a CLI is, together with some hands-on step-by-step demos of how to use the Google Workspace CLI at work. So this shift towards CLIs as a product is part of a growing trend towards so-called headless software. Andreessen Horowitz's Seema Amble published a new piece this week entitled Is Software Losing Its Head? And this piece explores that shift from UI-based software to headless software, asking what happens to software defensibility when the interface disappears. This piece uses Salesforce as the starting point. So Salesforce recently announced it would open up its APIs and go headless. And Amble's argument here is that this raises important questions that ask, if you strip away the interface, then what exactly are you left with? Her argument is that in the SaaS era, it was the UI that made products sticky. In other words, it was the interface that was the moat. But in an agentic world, then that moat weakens. Agents don't need a browser, they need an API, context, and the ability to act. So where does defensibility move? Amble's answer is that it shifts downwards to things like compliance critical data, operational logic, and permissioning, and upwards into proprietary data generation and network effects. So for product teams, it's still too early to say whether this is the future of products. And for consumer products, at least, I remain unconvinced that people will want to ditch UIs in favor of a dull chat box, at least for some specific use cases. For many users, the delight and satisfaction of using a product comes from interacting with the UI. And if you take that away and instead delegate your experience to AI agents, then that makes for a pretty miserable experience overall. It's also entirely possible that we see a backlash against AI agents and features, and there were some signs of this emerging this week. So this week it has been reported that TikTok is scaling back its AI summaries after complaints from users that it created bizarre and inaccurate captions, and Microsoft is reported to be cutting back on the rollout of Copilot after some customers described Copilot integrations ranging from unnecessary to functionally useless. The Windows team has already removed Copilot from various products, including things like Photos, Widgets, and Notepad. Gaming Copilot on Xbox is being wound down entirely. But what do you think? Is this thesis of headless software being the future correct? And is a wider user backlash against AI feature slop inevitable? Let me know in the comments if you have any strong feelings either way. One company that is leaning heavily into agentic automation, though, is Google. And this week, the company held its annual Android event, where it released multi-step automation capabilities for Gemini on Android devices. So this feature lets users describe complex tasks through natural language, and then Gemini executes them across multiple apps with user confirmation. So when you press your phone's power button and describe a task, Gemini will read your screen's current content as context, and then perform a series of sequential actions, so things like copying a grocery list from notes, opening your shopping app, and then adding items to your cart and pausing before the checkout. The AI also auto-browses the web to complete tasks like booking confirmations, filling out forms using your personal intelligence data. Another feature that was revealed this week from Google is vibe coding for widgets. So this is where users can simply describe what they want in natural language, and Gemini will automatically generate a custom widget. As well as this, new leaks have started to emerge about a potential new always-on agent that can learn from your behavior and work with connected apps and skills. So according to this leaker, this is called Gemini Spark, and it is due to be announced in the upcoming Google I/O. And the more you use Gemini Spark, the better it understands you and what you want to accomplish. To work on your tasks, it uses your information from your connected apps, personal intelligence, location, and more. But given that, for me at least, Gemini still struggles with things like editing spreadsheets on Workspace properly, I think I'll be holding off on that one until we see some more data about its performance. And speaking of data, let's finish the week with some data and trends for the week. Microsoft released its annual Work Trend Index data. And this is based on data collected from over 100,000 Copilot conversations and a survey of 20,000 AI users. The headline finding from this report is that nearly half of all Copilot conversations, that's 49%, are supporting cognitive work, so that's things like analyzing information, solving problems, and thinking through decisions. And within that, decision-making and problem-solving alone account for 28% of usage. The narrative around AI at work has often been that we should be automating repetitive tasks, but the data suggests that people are actually using it for most of the harder, messier thinking work. And on the jobs front, a new report claims that LinkedIn is laying off 5% of staff with a leaked memo from its chief product officer, stating that with it will come some internal structural changes. Our fastest moving teams are focused, have fewer layers, and leverage AI to move quickly, the CPO said. Airbnb's CEO Brian Chesky added to this picture, revealing that AI now writes 60% of Airbnb's new code and handles 40% of customer issues without human intervention. He also said the managers who won't get hands-on with tools like Claude Code have no place at the company, which is a pretty direct statement that kind of echoes what we saw from Coinbase's CEO last week. Anthropic's CFO puts the AI-generated code figure even higher, saying that AI now writes 90% of their code. But what impact is all of this having on engineering teams' brains? A new report this week found that over-reliance on AI in software engineering is degrading engineers' ability to think through problems independently. And so not only is there a potential negative technical impact on reliance on AI-generated code if it introduces tech debt, but a cognitive one too. And the former Adobe CPO, Scott Belsky, published a post this week arguing that cognitive expansion beats cognitive offloading. In other words, the act of thinking through a problem yourself is where real expertise grows, and that delegating too much of that to AI is a bad long-term trade for all of us. So he was promoting a tool called Obo, which this week shipped some new updates designed to help humans expand their cognitive abilities and learn new things. So if that's something that you're interested in, I've popped the link to that one in the description too. On that note, thanks very much for listening and watching. I'll be back next week with another briefing.